thank you. We're going to move on to some of the issues that have been raised by the audience tonight. The first one, and I think it's the elephant in the room in any debate, is how do you prioritize the ongoing toxic cleanup at the Hunters Point shipyard in relation to other city issues? How do you plan to address it? And should all the development be halted at the shipyard until the cleanup is completed? Let's begin with Theo Ellington.
How long?
Oh, let's give it 2 minutes. It's a big one.
There's a lot to say about the Hunters Point shipyard. This issue is really, really personal for me. I own a unit at the Hunters Point shipyard with my wife, who's here in the audience. We are expecting our first child later this year. And I refuse to sit back and allow companies like Tetra Tech to put greed over our health outcomes. 3 weeks ago, we filed a lawsuit against Tetra Tech for doing just that. When a letter comes back from the EPA that says 97% of the soil samples have been falsified, there needs to be major uproar. We sat back as the city and county in San Francisco, had no response for over 100 days. That is a shame. We need to be upset about this. We need to be upset because of the jobs that are put at risk. We need to be upset because of the number of housing units that are put at risk. I will not sit back and allow Tetra Tech or Lennar or any other developer for that matter to come through our community and put their greed and their profits above our health outcomes. Thank you.
Plain and simple answer to the question, we need to stop development on the entire shipyard, all sites, and clean it up entirely. There's no other way to rebuild trust in the community. We have spent 30 years into this process, and no one in authority can say with any authority if any part of the shipyard is safe to live. 30 years in. So we cannot have the people who put us in this situation today in charge of the cleanup tomorrow. And there's actually been complete complicity on the part of the city for a lot more than 100 days. It's been many years. I've been working on this shipyard cleanup and banging on this issue for more than a decade. It's the first thing that got me involved in volunteering in Bayview Hunters Point. And I was knocking doors on Navy Road just yesterday and talking to carpenters who have worked there and other folks who have worked, truckers who have worked there. And they all know what's going on. We in the neighborhood knew what was going on. We knew trucks were leaving in the middle of the night that were contaminated. We knew they weren't doing the testing fully, and the city blew us off. Everyone in the city family, every elected official has been complicit in this for a long, long time, and that is a scandal that no one's talking about as much as Tetra Tech. So 3 things to do. First, Tetra Tech, any city agency that has a contract with Tetra Tech should cancel that. Yes, we want the Navy to cancel their contract with Tetra Tech, but there's other contracts too, and city agencies have them. So get rid of them, get them out of the city. 2, put oversight of the shipyard project out of OCII or rather obscure commission appointed by the mayor and get it back to the Board of Supervisors who controls land use like everybody else. Then the board is responsible for it, so actually we can compete for the job to be in charge of what's happening at the shipyard. 3rd, for the Navy, we need to bring back the Citizens Advisory Committee for this, the RAB, the Restoration Advisory Board. It was the only agency actually tasked with overseeing the cleanup, and the Navy disbanded it on their own in 2009, and that's when the troubles began. And there's no accident about that. It's also when the approvals were in 2010, and it's also when Tetra Tech had a contract that incentivized working fast. We need to fix those things with better oversight.
Shamann, Walton.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to respectfully acknowledge our former mayor, Art Agnos, who is here in the audience today. And I want to thank you so much for your endorsement of my candidacy for district city. But first of all, we need to prioritize what's happening on the shipyard today. We don't need to wait till November 6th election before we step up. I've already been talking to the city attorney about litigation we can bring to Tetra Tech and what our possibilities and what our options are. I've also talked to City Attorney Herrera about who can we bring in, because Tony is absolutely right. We cannot trust the Navy, we cannot trust Tetra Tech or a lot of government entities. So we need to bring in academia to do the actual testing and find out what radioactivity exists on the shipyard, and then have them bring in somebody who is outside, who doesn't have a conflict, to come up and clean up our shipyard. And the entire shipyard needs to be clean. Tetra Tech needs to be removed from the process. We need to make sure that when we get to the testing, that it's not just the surface soil samples, which is what has been proposed by the state and by the Navy. We need to test everything deep in the soil on the entire shipyard and make sure that Tetra Tech does not oversee that process. And I know that the community does not trust government entities to do that anymore, and it's time to look outside and bring in entities like academia and that. I lost both of my grandparents to cancer before I was 18 years old. Both of them lived on 32 West Point Road, which is right in proximity to the shipyard. So I know how serious this is, and I'm not waiting till November 6th election to be trying to do something. And I'm not doing something that just benefits me. I'm doing something that benefits your children, my children, all of our children. As somebody who raises children in Baby Winners Point, it's important.
Are you playing?
Yeah, which one of these can I ask a follow-up question to?
Which, the challenge card.
Challenge, awesome.
All right.
How long do I have here?
30 seconds for your question. Take your ass when Shamann, a minute for Shamann.
I am. So, real quick, I know we all have very, very strong views about the Hunters Point Shipyard. But here are two things that worry me about Shamann's candidacy for District 10 Supervisor. One is the funds that your community organization and you personally on your campaign has taken from Lennar. And two, are you willing to publicly say you want all development halted until the entire shipyard is clean?
Shamann, 1 minute.
So one, my organization is a $10 million organization that receives 90% of its resources from the city and county of San Francisco, the federal pass-through. A good percentage from Philanthropy San Francisco Foundation. Haspan. Less than 7% of the budget of young community developers is from private sector, and definitely not from one entity. So anybody who makes up this thing about Lennar giving advice about $10 million has lost their mind. When have you seen a company give a big nonprofit $10 million? That's the first thing I want to say. But secondly, I'll ask a question to Theo because I have 30 seconds left. You were on the Office of Community Infrastructure Investment Commission that approved the shipyard project. You sat on that commission, and now you want to sue? Let's lead by example and do the things that we say we're going to do. I have never in my life been in the pocket of anybody, and never will, because I fight for my community. I don't make up stuff along the way, just because they're on there.
To address me directly, can I have a response?
The other candidates can give you 15 seconds on this, or 20 seconds.
That's not in the rules. As long as I can get 15 seconds, that's not in the rules. As long as I can get 15 seconds, that's not in the rules.
I am the rules.
Let him go.
We don't have to admit them
My only rebuttal is to get an answer to my actual question. I believe it's 30 seconds of fluff.
You ain't got enough in it. You ain't got enough in it.
So, another issue that a lot of our members have related around the issue. Oh, I'm so sorry, Uzuri. You went back and forth so many times, I lost track of where I was. Uzuri, would you please, 2 minutes of time, let us know your thoughts on this.
Woo!
That's right.
So, I just want to say that for years, when I stayed on McKinnon Street, there was a stench, and for years, community members had complained about being sick, about asthma, about their children being sick. So this has been going on for years. A gentleman said it so eloquently, which I'm not going to repeat it, but it was just said that basically it's because of certain people that are moving into the shipyard of why this all came out in the first place. Let's be perfectly clear about that. There's a gentleman by the name of Ben. Ben, are you back there? Raise your hand. So I was at another meeting, and Ben was able to say how this exact same thing basically happened over in the Presidio. And it got cleaned up in the Presidio. So I said, well then shoot. why don't we talk to Ben to find out who they used and how they did it, to find out and then to have it done over here. Because as we know, the Presidio is thriving and there are a lot of people that are living out there. So if this already happened and it's already been done, then why reinvent the wheel? And we have the gentleman right back there right now, so we can just ask you later on after this, exactly what were the steps that everybody went through to get it cleaned up. Because in essence, we all are gonna be living there, we still want the buildings to be built, but we do want everything to be totally cleaned up, and we do want our city and our community to be able to raise their children and not have to worry about their children being sick. So it's already been done. Let's use you, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you, Uzuri, and I do apologize.
No, you're good. There was a lot going on out here.
All right, we have a number of questions about the city and its relationship with families, which of course is a treacherous one because San Francisco has the lowest percentage of children in the America's largest cities. The question is, what can we do to make San Francisco a more attractive place for people with children? And let's start with Shamann.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. What can we do to make San Francisco a more attractive place for people with children and with families?
Well, I think everybody knows our biggest problem that we have families of people who come to San Francisco, they love the city. It's an exciting place to be. And when they get to the point where they decide to have a family, one of the main reasons they leave is because of our public school system. And I know that that's an issue, that's something I've been spending the last majority of my years fighting to improve the public school system. And so we need to make sure that our public schools are quality across the board. We need to do more like some of our parents that did at Daniel Webster, because all of our schools that are quality, by the way, the number one common denominator is that they have a strong parent community, a strong caregiver community. So if we can get all of our families to go to the schools in our communities and adopt the schools like we had happen at Daniel Webster, enrollment improves, we bring in programs like Spanish immersion, we have opportunities where now schools go from being endangered to being on the closure list, and they become one of the most chosen schools in the district. So the first thing we do to keep families here is improve our schools. And of course, make sure that we build more affordable housing for people who are low income, housing for working class families. My wife is a registered nurse. I'm an executive director of a workforce organization. We could not go out and buy a house tomorrow without some level of government intervention and taking advantage of programs. The problem is, the BMR programs, the below market rate programs that we have in place, or the down payment assistance programs we have in place, there's not enough resources to fund those programs. So we have to improve our schools, make our city more affordable for all levels of income, but particularly our low income and our working class families who work hard but still can't afford to live here unless we all work together to provide some kind of support. And that's what we need to do as a member of the Board of Supervisors, make sure those resources are available for those small sites programs, for those BMR programs,
Thank you,
and down payment assistance programs.
Uzuri.
So as a mother of 8 and a grandmother of 13, I am totally about family. But a lot has to do with affordability, and affordability in all avenues, in all aspects. Also, looking at the developers and making sure that the rules that they implement in their new developments are family friendly, because it has come to the attention that in some developments that are new, it is not child friendly. Your child can't ride their bike here. They can't play on this. They can't play on that. And the playgrounds that are implemented are not actual playgrounds. There should be playgrounds, swings. That's what it is. Can you hear me now? Good, that popping was annoying. And then making sure that the schools are for all ages. There is no way that you have 4 children, we'll just use an example, 4 children, and you have to put 2 in this school over here, 1 in this school, and 1 in this school because of the fact that they say the school is full, and so you can't put all your children in the same school. As well as having more school buses to get the children to the different schools. You don't know what I go through to get my granddaughter and some of the other neighborhood children over to the school that's over there by Candlestick Park. And then also looking at affordability. It should be affordable for everyone. And that also means that we need to raise the salary of our teachers, we need to raise the minimum wage, actually make it for people to be able to live. And like you said earlier, nobody should have to choose between paying their rent and buying some food, or paying their rent and buying the school uniforms that they need for their children. And that happens a lot in our community. And just because somebody lives in a house does not mean they're rich. Found that off too. A lot of people are, once they finish paying their mortgage or their rent, they have no money left over. So we have to look at all the different avenues if we are really going to make this a child-friendly city. And make the ones, the tech companies that are coming in, okay, I'll tell y'all later.
So I think the first thing we need to do to make San Francisco more family-friendly is build family-friendly units. There are so many cases where I see micro units and studios being the unit count for development in this city. I want to see more 3 bedrooms, more 4 bedrooms, opportunities for families to grow and families to expand. My wife and I are thinking about this now. We have a baby on the way, and the determination a lot of times in other cities of whether someone moves to a neighborhood or stays in the city is the quality of the school district. And we know that in neighborhoods like this, that parents share the bulk of responsibility for fundraising for their schools. It's the school district's responsibility. We've got to make sure that every single neighborhood has a quality school. This isn't by accident, right? The southeast side of the city has gotten the short end of the stick for too long. The last thing I will say for families would be universal access to preschool. In order to keep families here, we've got to start the investment in school very, very early. Universal access to preschool.
Tony.
A few things, I'll try to make them fast. First, I mentioned before, a child born today in Bayview can expect to live 14 years less than a child born on Russian Hill. That's infant mortality that's driving that. That's families. This city has not taken our health disparities seriously for a very long time, and we needed someone at the supervisor's office who knows these numbers, knows this is real, and can get the racist Department of Public Health back on track to solve the systemic racism problem in our health. Second, it's funny to me that Dana Webster keeps getting brought up. I was the community organizer, or one of the big community organizers, working with those parents, 3 of whom are in this room, and God bless Dina Fisher as well, but also everyone else of the 7 who really did that work and the heavy lift to save that school. There were 500 children or with their parents who moved into this neighborhood over the last 10, 12 years. They paid too much for the house, so that kid's going to public school. Then they find out the condition of the public schools, so they organize to save the public schools. I was a site council president at an old Maxwell school at a time when every school in the neighborhood was threatened to be closed by the school district. We lost that one in Maxwell, but we got an immersion program at Starr King, we had an immersion program at Webster, and the parents of Webster and Starr King and the other schools did an amazing job, and I'm proud to be the organizer with them that saved that school. And we wanted to export that to schools in Bayview and Viz Valley. A last point to bring up, it's also what we found in those years of saving Webster, is that so many families are at risk and in unstable home environments, 1 in 7. And if it's 1 in 7, that the rest of the classroom isn't learning either. So we need wraparound services, safe havens, schools on weekends and evenings. If they don't feel safe or secure at home, they can stay at the school. Other programs, STEAM programs, yes. Other things we need to do. One last point, not on this subject, that I'll bring up. Uzuri mentioned talking to Ben, Mr. Ben Becker at the back about Presidio and his toxic cleanup. He got that info from me. So if you want to talk about how to clean up the shipyard the right way, like Presidio, talk to me.
This came up a few times in each of your responses, but the issue about education and supporting public schools, we certainly have a Board of Education that administers a lot or most of school policy. We'll run back down the line in exactly the same order with 1 minute for each response, but as a member of the Board of Supervisors, what will your role be in supporting San Francisco's public schools, particularly given the challenges in District 10 with its desperate outcomes depending on where you are in the district? Shamann, 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. So Commissioner Ellington said something that's true, that it is the responsibility of our school district to educate our students. The state of California funds us at a rate to where we don't have the resources to go around and provide the quality education our students deserve. The one exciting part about that is we're in a city that has a public education enrichment fund. We're in a city that has a Quality Teacher Education Act. We're in a city that just passed Prop G to increase wages for educators. So as a member of the Board of Supervisors, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I will make sure that we increase our resources that go into our schools so we can continue to increase wages for educators so that we can bring more quality programs to our schools in the entire district. Just imagine if we had more Mandarin immersion programs, more STEM and tech programs across the entire district. And the city is responsible for that part because these are all of our children. They belong to the school district and they belong to the city. And I've been delivering that message, and we're going to make sure that more resources come from the City and County of San Francisco into our schools.
Uzuri.
So first off, I would talk to the parents, because the parents know what their children need inside the schools. And then second is also, we need services in the school for when our children are traumatized. It is very hard for a child that hears gunshots or has to walk past somebody that just got shot and then go to school and then figure out what they're gonna do and process that whole episode. And then the teachers that are not there, they don't understand what's going on, so they say, oh no, you just have behavioral problems. So this is what needs to happen in our schools, is actually taking the time out to listen and talk to the parents. And I mean all parents, not just PTA. I love PTAs, but we need to get all the parents involved. That means having some meetings on Saturdays, having some meetings in the evening times, which means you provide dinner, because that means they won't get home and cook, and really honing in on what each school needs, because what is needed in one school may not be needed in another school. And so therefore, it's like really taking the time out to really listen and actually listen to the children as well.
Thank you, Uzuri. Theo.
So 2 quick points there. I mentioned universal access to pre-K, which I want to underscore because it's super, super important, super vital to make sure that students get access to early education. The second thing I will say is community schools. Uzuri mentioned this briefly during her remarks, but a student going to school in Bayview needs a whole lot more than a student going to school over in the marina. So we've got to supplement those services to ensure that we really have a community school, a school that's opening up on weekends, a school that has community partners, a school that can have opportunities for the entire family. We're missing that in Bayview. We've been missing that in Bayview for the past 15, 20 years.
Tony.
I think the district needs to look in the mirror about how they use their budget first, but we also need to continue to supplement in the city budget. The school district spends less than the state average on teachers in the room. I'm glad we passed Prop G. I'm glad we're up, higher in where we pay teachers in the state, but there's still hundreds of school districts up and down the state who pay teachers more than San Francisco. We need to do better, and the district needs to do their part in that as well. Also, we need teacher housing in District 10. That's what the help for teacher retention is. We need them here as well. Also, we need support. Like I said in my previous answer, we need wraparound services. We need case management. We need to support the families much, much better, as well as the teachers, as well as the operations in the school. Pontero Public Housing did a census a few years ago, 360-odd kids, school-age kids, going to 71 different schools all over the city, because there's no support for the lottery system. They get assigned anywhere, and off they go. So we need transit. We need to provide better transit for the kids and keep them through our schools.
Thank you. We'll ask one more question from the audience. We had a number of questions regarding the issues of homelessness. And we'll kind of combine the question with, want to move on to your question, so we'll try and be brief. We'll give you 1 minute to respond, and we'll start with Tony and come back this way. Do you support Proposition C, the San Francisco Gross Receipts for Homeless Services Initiative? And what other changes would we make about the way the city combats homelessness?
Strong support of Proposition C. In fact, I'm carrying door hangers for Proposition C with my own campaign literature, knocking on thousands of doors every week from here on all the way through to Election Day. Hardcore supporter. It's a horrific measure, taxing our wealthiest corporations to get thousands of our homeless neighbors off the streets each year. It's one of the best, it's a brilliant policy proposal. I'm proud to have been one of the authors of Prop S in 2016, which would have ended family homelessness by 2021. Prop C this year is an outgrowth of that measure, so I'm proud to be an ally of the Coalition of Homelessness and Mother Brown's dining room in Bayview. The other thing I'd like to sort of see change is definitely funding for homelessness in D10. We have 1/3 of the city's homeless population in District 10. We get less than 10% of the city's homelessness funding. And the push of the city is, oh, those dollars are committed, they're already spent. They're being used on police. They're being used on sweeps. They're being used on criminalizing homelessness. We have more laws targeting homelessness than any city in the state.
Thank you. Theo.
So yes, I do support Prop C. If I had to point out two things that I think the city needs to do better in terms of homeless services, is the first is interdepartmental communications. So there is no reason why SFPD, DPW, Department of Public Health, Human Service Agency, you name it, are spending extra dollars on solving the homeless issue. We've got a problem with city departments also communicating out. What are some of the metrics? How do we hold community-based organizations accountable? The last thing I will say is we've got to clear space in our shelters, and we also have to build more housing. We've got to get people off the streets into supportive housing programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Uzuri, 1 minute.
Having been a person who has been homeless and slept on the sidewalk in a cardboard box, and I'm not talking about just for a day, but I'm talking about for months. One, we need to stop moving them from one block to the next block. The second thing is that everybody needs to start talking together. The third thing is that we need to build more shelters, and also look at the shelters that are already built, because of the fact the way they run the shelters makes a person who's homeless don't want to go to the shelter in the first place, because there's dehumanizing. They are mean, they are dehumanizing, and they are just rude in a lot of the shelters. So we need to expand on the shelters that are already here, and actually, if you're gonna have services, have real services, not check the box services, and not check the box meetings, but actually, and stop having meetings. You already know what's wrong.
Thank you, Uzuri. Shamann, Walton, 1 minute.
So I'm definitely a strong supporter of Prop C. In fact, I have written 2 ballot arguments in favor of Prop C. It's important to have the resources to build housing for homeless population and to make sure that they have the resources and services they need. Temporary, we need more navigation centers. And we need to make sure that the entire city of San Francisco has a balance of navigation centers. We have one in the district in Dogpatch, and we have one on the way, 125 Bayshore. I, along with a lot of other community-based organizations, wrote the proposal to bring the navigation center to 125 Bayshore, mental health supports, substance abuse supports, and one thing we added in addition is a jobs program to make sure that once we get you into temporary housing or permanent housing, you'll be able to learn the skill and get the resources. And we need to bring more beds to D10. Also working with Buena Vista Horace Mann to provide emergency sleep services for families who attend that school. That is happening in October, and just imagine if we could house all of our homeless families in our school sites. We would solve the problem for at least our students.
All right, we are to that portion of the evening where the candidates get to ask a question of another candidate. The candidate will have about 30 seconds to ask the question. The responding candidate will get 2 minutes to respond. Let's begin with Uzuri. Who would you like to ask a question?
Okay, so Theo.
Use your microphone.
So my question is that if you or any one of us is elected as supervisor, will you work with each person to better this city and better D10?
In a minute, so I get to respond. 2 minutes. Absolutely. I think it is imperative that we think beyond November 6th. Although this has been a heated discussion and these big debates have been taken to every neighborhood, I want to make sure that each of you are working in lockstep with each other, and for me, for that matter. Uzuri, you could even lead my committee. No, on a serious note, I think it's important I think we owe it to the residents of District 10. I think we owe it to the residents of San Francisco to ensure that as all this growth happens in this neighborhood, that you have folks who are willing to step up and step out and fight for the neighborhood we deserve. We have 8 waterfront development projects happening in this neighborhood, yet we lack transit, yet we lack adequate parking, yet homelessness is rampant throughout this neighborhood. So these are basic things that it's going to take really a broad-based coalition. I don't expect any one of us to be able to solve all of these issues by ourselves. So I would fully expect, if elected supervisors, to work with each of you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Shamann, your question.
Thank you, JR. Well, I think 2 days after Women's Equality Day, I would like to ask Uzuri a question. And just, the question really is, I'd like to get your thoughts from a woman's perspective in terms of some of the issues that affect you differently maybe in District 10. As someone who was raised by a single mother and as someone who has a daughter, that's always important to know what's on the mind of our women as we do this work on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Shamann. Thank you, Shamann. How many minutes do I have? 2 minutes? 2 minutes. So I think for me, myself, a lot of it has to do with people saying that we can't do something and that we are not allowed to do something. And looking at where we live, being told you can't run for supervisor. Whether I win or not, I'm running basically because of the fact that I was told because you live in public housing, you cannot run. I look at all these young ladies that are here in this audience. I look at these young men, and it's a beautiful thing to see. So our young ladies need to see more women in power of all different ages and of all different nationalities. And making a way for that to happen is what's important. And this needs to be taught back out into the schools as well. And a lot of people are going to have a fit, but sex education needs to be brought back into the schools. Because a lot of these young girls don't believe, and excuse my language, that doing oral sex is sex, and let's get to the heart of it, but a lot of them don't realize that. And I think for a lot of women is that being put into these different positions to be able to have non-traditional jobs, to be able to afford child care, to be able to send their children to preschool and have the child go to child's care, and not just for one day. So there's a lot, and that's just my take just for this few 2 minutes. And I just had to be true because I have 13 grandchildren and 8 children, and most of them are girls. And I know what I went through as a young woman. So therefore, that's why I just put it out there like that, because I'm just going to say it and keep it real.
Thank you, Uzuri. Tony Kelly, your question.
Sure. My question's for Theo. So, hey Theo.
What's up, Tony?
Hey. When it comes to housing in San Francisco, there's been way too little planning, way too much negotiation, and residents have really gotten the short end of the stick. So you've worked in private development and in the public sector on commissions. And so how should a supervisor navigate public and private interests when it comes to housing, especially on public land?
Awesome. Thank you for the question, Tony. I have had the privilege of negotiating community benefits packages on the side of developers and on the side of the community. So definitely appreciate that question. I think the first thing that needs to happen is developers need to come to the community. And this community has proven time and time again that when Potrero Hill is brought in as an equal partner in development projects, that's when successful development happens. I think we have to sort of peel back the layers on all of these projects and start with the community. We want to make sure these development projects are reflective of the values of the people who actually live here. The second thing we have to do, in cases where the city is not able, we have to push the private sector to build the city's infrastructure. Transit. This area, this district, has so many unmet transportation needs that the city cannot backfill. It's a responsibility of developers. Community benefits should be things like open space. Community benefits should be things like community centers. Things that everyone can enjoy. Thank you.
Tony is playing his rebuttal card. Tony, you have 1 minute.
Not so much of a rebuttal, but I think it's an and to add to this, because I think Theo's points are actually correct, but it's also, we have a problem because we have these negotiations that happen on projects, and so let's make a deal every single time. And we end up losing, because especially on public land, it's our land, it's our money. We should be able to be getting much better agreements out of these things. And so don't listen to any of us who say, oh, we can be Superman or Superwoman, and we can make these deals because we're special and magical and have pixie dust, and we can make these deals. No, you need legislation and doing the hard work. We've been promised for years jobs in return for development. We still have the largest gap between black employment and white employment of any big city in America. So that is a sucker's bet. We still aren't getting cleanup of pollution under our ground. We're trying to build thousands of units of housing on toxic land. What kind of medical experiment are we running? We need to demand much more and do much better in planning that will get us there.
Thank you. Theo, your question.
All right. So where should I go? No suggestions. Okay. I'm going to go with Tony. There is a lot of money getting ready to be dumped into this district, particularly by public interests that we hold in high regards to have the community's best interest in mind. I'll give you 3 examples. Public Utilities Commission has a $7 billion project here in the neighborhood. Recology, who has a monopoly on the city's garbage rates, is set for a multi-million-dollar expansion. And Lennar, who is in part responsible for the environmental disaster at the Hunters Point shipyard,
Ask the question.
how will you hold these large entities accountable? And are you willing to reject any funding that comes your way from any one of those large entities?
2 minutes.
You need to work with your colleagues on the Board of Supervisors to draw a number of lines in the sand. I don't think the board has done a very good job of this at all in the last 10 years or so. Specifically about the PUC. We're still waiting for the PUC to deliver a lot of the benefits they promised us back in the 80s when they built the sewage treatment plant there in the first place. So we have 80% of the city's sewage, and sewage from other cities as well, coming through right across the street from people's homes, and that's why it stinks a lot on Evans Street. And then we were promised a soccer field, we were promised other things. The greenhouses that were supposed to provide green jobs are now gone because it's staging for the construction for the next phase of the sewage treatment plant. And we really haven't had a robust, public process about the benefits for that as well. So the PUC owes us a lot. We got 10 acres of land, we're now down to 4.5 at 1550 Evans. We need 5.5 more acres of land. The list goes on. And we're not doing a good job of holding these entities accountable, whether it's the PUC or private developers. Recology, Little Hollywood stinks because there's a dump. In what big city do we have the dump across the street from people's homes? Sewage treatment plant across the street from people's homes. What city has a nuclear waste dump within their city limits? District 10 has all of these. So we need to be very serious about our planning and our land use and our environmental cleanup. And who do you want in the supervisor's office to manage that, especially in these crucial next 10 years where 2/3 of the city's developable land is in District 10? Do you want someone who's been standing up for the environment and for better community benefits packages and standing with the community for 15 years? Or folks who have been looking the other way for promises of jobs that end up not being delivered here?
Before we go to closing, I want to touch on one topic that we haven't had a chance to ask about because it's something the audience was interested in, and I know that our debate committee was interested in as well. And I'll give you 1 minute each to respond on this question, but in this neighborhood, we're concerned about the number of car break-ins, auto burglaries, crimes of that nature. We think we're in a... We have this perception that we're in a property crime, spike. In the southern part of the district, the issue is shootings, a much more serious type of crime. And there are also issues about police policy and police accountability at play. What will you do as supervisor to ensure that the district gets safe and effective policing? And let's start with Theo on this.
So back in 2011, I was proud to organize a broad coalition to stop the predatory police practice of stop and frisk from coming to San Francisco. 4 years later, I was principal officer for the campaign to jumpstart the Department of Police Accountability. And as Human Rights Commissioner, we hosted over 21 forums across the city and county of San Francisco about police and community relations. You have no better advocate in me to ensure that we have police and community relations at its best. I want to make sure that the police officers get out of their vehicles and they walk the beat. I want to make sure that the police officers come to settings like this and actually meet folks where they are. I want to make sure that at every step of the way, we are doing what we can to ensure better police and community relations. That's in communities of color, that's here in Potrero Hill, that's in the public housing sites, everywhere across this district. We've got the opportunity to improve community relations with the police. Thank you.
Thank you. Tell me.
Expanding Free City College is one of the best answers we have to our growing and continuing crime problems. Let me explain. Without going into profiling, every police captain will tell you that the folks committing crimes are underemployed, young men of color, or ex-offenders returning from jail. We have both in District 10 more than any other part of the city. We need opportunities, we need alternatives, because every police captain will also tell you, you'd be surprised or shocked or alarmed how many crimes are committed, big and small, simply because the folks had nothing better to do that night. That night. I want to expand Free City College to folks who have recently been displaced from the city. In addition to keeping in the summer, which is the people who really need Free City College, we need to get these alternatives of jobs and education and services and alternatives so our young men are not on the corner and have productive things to do, and so that we don't get beef starting each night, which end up hurting our neighborhood in so many ways.
Thank you, Shamann. Yes, Shamann will play his rebuttal card and we'll get 2 minutes.
Thank you. It's not a rebuttal. I just want more time to respond.
We made it differently in 4 years.
I just didn't want Tony to think I was responding to him. So first, we need to increase our community ambassadors program. It works very well, but the problem is we don't have enough funding and resources to have more community ambassadors out there. So we need to get the resources so we can have people that live in your communities, that have grown up in your communities, working to help deter crime and deter violence. Because when we have people with relationships with offenders, that deters crime, and we have the data to prove it. Secondly, training in jobs, and not just training in jobs that exist in our current community, because we actually place over 600 people in jobs. A good chunk of them are involved in multiple systems, including juvenile and adult justice system. We need to go a step further. We have jobs in the hedge. These are good city jobs that employ our people, and they need to be able to have opportunity to be employed there, out of their environment, and also receive the mental health supports, the trauma supports, and the things that they need to be successful. And prevention is big, and we need to start early. We need to stop spending $100,000 a year to incarcerate juveniles, stop spending $50,000 a year to incarcerate adults, and put all that money into our kindergarten and college program.
That's right.
Put all that money into building places for our young people to go. When you and I get off work, we go hang out somewhere because we want to have a good time with our friends. Our young people have nowhere to go. There's no bowling alleys, there's no skating rinks, there's no video game centers, the things we used to have, and I don't want to date myself when we were growing up. So I'm going to make sure that I'm talking about cannabis resources that are coming in a couple of years. We want to make sure we use that money to build things that are going to keep our folks from getting in trouble.
Thank you. And Uzuri.
Hi. So I'm actually going to echo what.
1 minute.
Thank you. So I'm going to echo what my colleagues right here have said. So I am part of the community part that goes out to the academy and talks about the procedural justice training for Module 4 with the police department. I'm also on the Chiefs African American Advisory Committee. I'm also on Captain Forrest Community Police Advisory Board. There needs to be more people on these different panels. And there also needs to be more people trained to go out to speak on the procedural justice training. All the different events that we do is very important. We host a meeting once a month in Potrero Hill Public Housing on Dakota Street, where the meeting is with the chief of police once a month for 1 hour, where our young people are actually able to come in and talk about however they want to talk about. And it's not just young people, but people from the community, and it's not just public housing, it is open up to just about anybody. So there is a lot that has to do with what my counterparts just said, as well as expanding on that.
Thank you, Uzuri. It is now time for your closing statements. You will each get 2 minutes to close out the evening. As we started here and went down, we're going to start at the far end and come back. Tony Kelly, your closing.
Some of you know my mother worked for the American Can Company here in the city and died of cancer when she was 44. Some of you know my father worked for U.S. Steel and died homeless at the corner of First and Mission Streets 33 years ago. So like many of us in District 10, I know firsthand how living in the city can break up families and break up dreams. How about you right now? How are you doing? Are we on the right track or the wrong track? How's the status quo working out for you? Do you feel represented at City Hall? Do you feel like City Hall cares about you and whether you stay in the city? We all know friends have been pushed out of the city. I know families where 3 generations have died of the same cancer. I know elders who are living on 1 meal a day. I know renters who know that the for sale sign means they're out, and that the big luxury development across the street means this is for us and not for you. We have a system that needs desperate change. And we're not going to get this change from politicians. We need an advocate. We need an advocate at City Hall. We need to bring that change with the values, the commitment, and the experience in advocacy to get us the change that we desperately need to fight for our neighborhoods against big developers, big business, and big banks. For better oversight at the shipyard and the police department. Against politicians who say anything and do so much less. And hard to give us the massive change we need. The same people in charge of where we are today cannot be in charge of where we go tomorrow. That's why I'm running for the seat, District 10 seat on the Board of Supervisors, with a corporate-free campaign, not a penny from developers or lobbyists, and people power. We've knocked on 20,000 doors already. We got 1,000 signatures to get on the ballot in 24 days, far faster than any campaign in the entire city. So please join us. Join us and knock doors. Join us for the next 2 months. We're about 60 days, 70 days from the election. We can work together. Much more at TonyKellySupervisor.com. Thank you for listening tonight.
Thank you, Tony. Theo Ellington, your closing.
First off, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and spending this evening with us talking about these much heated topics. I want to be clear. I am not running to be something, I'm running to do something. It is unfortunate that all of the city's inequalities play themselves out right here in the heart of this district. If you look at our unemployment rate, the city touts this 3.9% unemployment rate. In this district, upwards of 11%. Amongst communities of color, or African Americans, or Latinos, that goes up to about 16%. Cost of living. If you try to buy a house 10 years ago in Bayview, $300,000. You fast forward that today, I saw a house go off the market for $1.3 million. We can do better as a city. We can do better as a district, and it starts right here in this neighborhood. Despite those startling facts, there are so many stories of strength that keep this community going. And it's right here in this community. The preschool. When parents are coming together to stand up for the neighborhood they deserve. Or retail merchants down 3rd Street. We've got 5 new businesses moving in to the 3rd Street corridor when other corridors are closing. This is how we advocate for the neighborhood that we deserve. This community has proven to be effective. This community has been proven to be resilient, and we cannot stop now. I need your help. Your district needs your help. The city needs your help. Again, I'm Theo Ellington. I'm running for District 10 Supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Uzuri, Pease-Greene, 2-minute closing, please.
Hi, everybody. So, like you said, my name is Uzuri Pease-Greene. I am 53 years old, a mother of 8, grandmother of 13. I've been clean and sober for almost 10 years now because I used to smoke crack and drink. I have been sleeping on the sidewalk in a cardboard box, and I'm not talking about for a day or 2 days. I'm talking about for quite a while. I can tell you about some doorways where you can sleep in, an elevator where you can sleep in, and where the cars you can park and be comfortable. I am not running, because first of all, I am not a politician, definitely not. And I'm not running to elevate myself, to move over, to go higher up. I am only running because, one, I got tired of sitting in the rooms and seeing how the decisions are being made without any of us at the table. When I say us, I mean people, everyday people, that the decisions that are being made are affecting. I got tired of people telling me, a person telling me that I can't run because I live in the public housing. And in essence, I just want to echo the voices of everybody else. That's why I want to have a subcommittee, because District 10 is made up of a pocket of at least 6 different districts inside District 10. So a subcommittee made up of 2 people from each category, from a business owner, a low-income resident, a homeowner, a youth, definitely, and then law enforcement. And that subcommittee is the one that would run me and tell me what to vote on, because what is needed in Dogpatch is not needed in Sunnydale, and what is needed in Visitation Valley is not needed in Ventura Hill. So having that subcommittee is the one that would tell me what I do, because I'm just the supervisor. It's your job. And I would be voicing what you need in your community. So that's why I'm running, just to echo the voices of the ones, because we haven't been heard in City Hall. City Hall is too quiet. It's time to shake it up.
Thank you, Uzuri. Shamann, Walton.
Thank you. First, I want to thank JR for moderating tonight. I want to thank the Potrero Democratic Club, the Potrero Boosters, and everyone who had a hand in making this debate possible this evening. I also want to acknowledge Gloria Berry and Solid Chandler, who are also candidates in this race and who are in the audience. I just want to acknowledge them real quick. The one thing I love about living in San Francisco is that when people start lying and get desperate, when campaigns get to the end, there are things that can prove them all wrong. People talk about all this developer money and all this stuff that they try to paint and post on Facebook and have their friends lie saying you work for corporations you've never worked for. You can look at our form from the 60s and see who donates to us. You can see that I'm supported by teachers, leaders of CBO, people in this room, public housing residents who are sitting right here, that I grew up with, that I come from. This fight for me is personal. I'm fighting to take a pay cut because I know you all believe in your communities, you all believe in your neighborhoods. As a father and as a husband, you all want your families to be safe and have the things that you deserve. We have been isolated and disenfranchised too long in District 10. That's right. And we need somebody who knows that, recognizes that, but also has the ability to get the things done that they say they're going to do, and has been able to do time in and time out. I'm a teen parent. I've been expelled from school. I was in and out of juvenile hall growing up. And fortunately, I had mentors like many people in this audience to invest in me so we could be having this conversation. I am one of you for you. Never forget that and always know that. The last thing I'll say, the one thing that separates me from every candidate up here, every last one of them have voted for me before because they know I'm the best candidate.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes tonight's debate. I want to remind you that the vote Democratic Club members need to turn in their ballots to Johnny Ison over here in the window.